What if I told you the single most powerful way to get booked as a DJ has nothing to do with sending demos or networking? It's about grabbing a $20 generator, finding a random field, and throwing a party with your friends. Now, it's easy to hear that and think, okay, I'll just start my own night. But what happens when you do? You sell out your first party, you sell out your second, and then you make that one rookie error that bankrupts almost every new promoter. You think booking big, expensive talent is the next logical step. You think that's how you grow, but you're wrong. It's a trap that can kill your momentum and your brand before it even starts. So how do you avoid that trap? The secret isn't scaling fast, it's in scaling smart. It's about understanding that before you can build a festival, you have to build trust. And that trust starts with the simplest, most authentic actions. It starts with a philosophy of taking that first step yourself, because no one is going to just hand you a career. And today, DJ and entrepreneur Josh Baker is going to show us exactly how he did it. If you can't get booked, I mean, why not book yourself?
Yeah, that was literally why we started you&me. So the story was, I went to Ibiza at the age of, I think I was 19, and I was DJing every single day at this villa. And it was the kind of logical thing that when I went back, I needed a platform to play. And back then it was competitive. It felt competitive, but even now it seems like more competitive than ever. But at the time it felt like, okay, the only option is to start a night. And yeah, the literal reason to do it was to give myself a chance to get experience playing behind the decks, just to my friends, no bookings, things like that. And it was literally just to give myself that chance, like you said, just to get booked. Before that, I did you&me, I used to set decks up in my parents' house. I would take a generator to fields. We used to do like parties in fields when I was, I think maybe like 16, 17. We bought, I remember the day, we went on Facebook Marketplace. We Googled generator. We bought a generator for £20. We took it to like a field, filled it with petrol, put on like a Facebook group, invited people there. I think we did that like 3 times. And then alongside that, every single weekend, so 13 years ago now, I would take like a small boombox to house parties and like set them up there.
You just got to take the first step.
Yeah, I think you've got to have initiative to just make things happen, because no one's going to ask you to begin with, okay, will you come DJ here? You've kind of just got to try and prove your worth where you can. And then it was like the natural progression then to kind of do it in a natural venue opposed to just doing it in houses, things like that.
So did you&me come first, or did Hide and Seek Festival come first?
You&me. So you&me was born, this year is the 10-year anniversary of it, which is crazy. So a decade of doing parties. We just started in a Fallowfield basement. Fortunately, my business partners, Kurt, Dash, and Dan, they were already doing student events. So they were already promoters, which was great for me. I was a DJ, they were promoters. Like, on that note, anyone listening, if you're going to start a night, try and find people who aren't just DJs. Because if everyone's a fucking DJ, then it's going to be like clash of heads from the off.
Yeah.
So they were already promoters. They had the experience, the knowledge of how to set up a night. They had a contact at a place in Fallowfield, which is like a really grungy student area in Manchester. I think it was 200 capacity, and we sold it out straight away. So it was like £3 to get in or something like that.
Wow.
We sold it out, done, did it again, sold it out. And then we made the rookie error of trying to book talent, because like, that's what you think you do. You book big names, then everyone comes. And then, not to go too far into that, but like we started trying to book names pretty quickly, and yeah, it didn't go so well. So we should have stuck to the slow and steady growth, which I would advise anyone. Try and, just go from 100 to 150 to 200 to 250, like incremental increases in capacity. We didn't. We tried to go like 2 events, then go for it. But yeah, you&me first, and it's the same team who did you&me, did Hide and Seek.
How do you balance building your own brand as Josh Baker, the artist, versus all these other things you have a hand in?
Like over a kind of a time period, you&me at the start was definitely kind of growing at a quicker rate than I was. Over a couple of years, we'd start to book bigger names. The bigger names would kind of build you&me up, and then I could almost like coattail off the back of that. So I'd warm up for these artists, get to know the artists. People would come for the artists and see me. So it was like, if we tried to focus on growing you&me, then I was catching up with it. But then there was a point in time, probably after COVID, where I started to get a bit more traction. Now it's kind of clear that I'm much bigger than you&me, and it brings you&me up with it. But it's hard with that kind of thing. They both complement each other. The bigger I've got, the bigger that's got. But then the early days, the bigger that got, it gave me a platform. Same with Hide and Seek. Like Hide and Seek to begin with, Hide and Seek's still kind of bigger than me. Hard to kind of compare the two. But Hide and Seek to begin with was a much bigger product than I was. And then each year I've got bigger. I've kind of helped that grow as well. And this year will be the first time I close the festival. So it's like, after 6 years, now I'm arguably one of the biggest acts on there, and I'll close it. So it's kind of hard to say how you divide your time because it's an ecosystem. That's the beauty of it, I think.
Gaining brand equity is not, and leverage with your brand is not necessarily the same thing as making a bunch of money. One is a longer term strategy, a long game.
Long game for sure. I think the whole thing, everything we've done within our team, we've always been really, really patient on, like, I think they're saying something like the longer the wait, the bigger the ask. If you just wait. If the minute you start getting any success, you're trying to charge loads for tickets, trying to get people to sign up to this, sign up to that. It's not authentic and then unlike to do it. Whereas if you can build trust over time, making YouTube videos, doing podcasts, and then you decide to sell something, there's much more trust and people are willing to pay for whatever you're offering then.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think there's a lot of, it's like a scarcity mindset of like, oh my God, I need to make money now. And like you said, the building trust thing is so huge. People are more likely to buy from someone who they've familiarized themselves with, and you've, given them things like cheap access. I don't want to say cheap, but you know what I mean? Low ticket price access to certain things.
Yeah. And I think with like, when they're trying to sell anything, I think there's some percentages like try and give away like 90% of it for free. Like Syntha, we give away free YouTube videos. We give away tips every single day. And then that 10%, if people like the 90%, often they'll be willing to part with that final bit of cash for the extra 10%.
Yeah, and social media, I mean, this is an argument that that other people have in my comments daily, right? Of like how it's ruined the art of DJing and whatever. And, for me, I see it as you've never had an easier way to get your art out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think how I view social media is you always have to get your music heard in some way. So someone in the comments may correct me if I'm wrong. If you were an artist in the 1990s, to get your music heard, you had to go and do something. You had to go and meet people, give them the record. I would suspect someone who's scared to put a video on social media was the same person scared to go and meet someone in a record shop. Like, just my guess. I don't know what the full protocol was to send demos out. Of course, you could have posted them, but like, you could technically email your demos now, but like, they get lost in the sea of everything else. Like, I think there's always been a way in which you had to kind of go by to get your music heard. Now it's definitely easier than ever because of social media. But I guess on the flip side, it's hard because everyone's doing it. But I don't think it was ever a case of like this thing didn't exist. It was never easy. I think the problem has changed. Another thing is like people used to have to rely on billboards, radio. Like they were two massive things. Like
expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah, you had to spend a lot of money to get, whether it's promote music videos, whatever it was. I like what you just said. No one's ever said that before. The same on the show, the same people who were too afraid or who are too afraid to put out their music now on social will probably be too afraid back then
to take the record into a shop and cold approach someone. Like,
yeah,
I think, like for me personally, I'd probably rather just put a video on social media. But like, I don't know. But I mean, I would go into a shop. That was what I had to do. But I wouldn't have felt any. Yeah. Example now is I remember when I put my first video up on social media, I was probably as anxious as that as I would have been to go into a record shop and give some test presses to a random guy and just like be like, "Here's my music, bro."
It's cringe. It's cringy.
Yeah.
I think about that. Like, there's so many artists now that I've talked to virtually and we stay in touch or whatever, but I've never met in person. And even going to meet them at the shows after is like fucking, I'm like, I don't know. I don't actually know you. So it's a weird industry. You're constantly putting yourself out there. And so it just kind of like democratizes it and I think makes it less awkward because you're just sending it out in the ether versus the one-to-one.
It's a tough one. I mean, it's not going to go away. So anyone complaining about it, I'm like, what is the point?
Yeah.
I think the rules of the game just change. This isn't the only industry it changed. Like, I don't know the dynamics of modeling, for example, but I'm sure how to become a model has now changed. How to become like a chef has probably now changed. I think like, I don't know the kind of ins and outs of it all, but industries just change over time. Music's obviously changed massively over time. I don't think there's any point really kind of moaning about it. I understand Bill's frustration. Like, let's be real. Like, music should do the talking, but there's just more to it than that. And it's a business at the end of the day.